The emergency broadcast interrupted every screen on Earth simultaneously. No warning, no static, just a face that looked almost human but wrong in subtle ways. The eyes were too far apart, the skin had a faint purple tint, and when the creature smiled, too many teeth showed. "People of Earth," the alien said in perfect English, "I am Ambassador Trellix of the Dominion Empire. Your world has been selected for integration into our glorious collective. You have 72 hours to accept our terms." In Geneva, the United Defense Council scrambled to respond. Admiral Rivera sat at the main table, her fingers drumming against the polished surface. Around her, representatives from every nation argued in a dozen languages. The translation software struggled to keep up. "Silence," Rivera said quietly, but her voice cut through the chaos. The room fell still. "Let's hear what they want." The message played again on the central display. Trellix outlined the Dominion's generous offer. Earth would surrender all weapons. 40% of all resources would go to the Empire as tribute. Every human between ages 18 and 30 would serve 10 years in the Dominion military. In return, Earth would receive protection and access to basic galactic technology. "Basic technology," Dr. Hassan muttered from his seat. The astrophysicist adjusted his glasses and pulled up data on his tablet. "They're offering us fusion power. We've had that for 30 years. "They don't know that," General Park said. The Korean officer leaned forward, studying the alien ship positions that were appearing on the tactical display. "They think we're primitives." Outside Earth's atmosphere, the Dominion fleet hung in space like a swarm of metal insects. Sensors counted 300 vessels, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their weapons were obvious even to civilian observers. Gun ports lined every hull. Shield generators glowed with contained energy. On the flagship, Trellix turned to Fleet Commander Rathner with satisfaction. "The humans are probably panicking right now. Standard response pattern." "How long do you think they'll actually take?" Rathner asked, examining his claws with disinterest. "The Kellys surrendered in 4 hours. The Benthari took 6. Humans are stubborn according to our scans, probably the full 72 hours. Trellix pulled up Earth's file on his display. "Barely spacefaring. Nuclear weapons, chemical propulsion, primitive computers. They haven't even left their own star system." "Typical isolated world," Rathner agreed. "This is conquest number 848. I was hopping for something more challenging." Back on Earth, the Defense Council had moved to a secure bunker beneath the Swiss Alps. Admiral Rivera stood before a massive holographic display showing the Dominion fleet in real time. Every ship was tagged and tracked. "Dr. Hassan, what do we know?" she asked. The scientist stood and gestured at the display. "Their technology is impressive. Energy shields, faster-than-light travel, directed energy weapons. There may be 50 years ahead of our public technology." "Public technology," Rivera repeated with a thin smile, "and our classified systems." "That's where it gets interesting." Hassan pulled up a new image. "Their shields pulse on a regular cycle. Every 47 seconds there's a 0.03-second gap. Their weapons systems use a centralized targeting network. Their ship formations are ceremonial, designed for intimidation, not defense." Colonel Barnes, head of Special Operations, cleared his throat. "We've been scanning their communications. They're not even encrypted. They think we're too primitive to intercept them." "What are they saying?" Rivera asked. "They're bored," Barnes said flatly. "They've done this 847 times before. Not one species has ever fought back. They're already discussing which planet to hit next week." General Park brought up historical files. "I've been reading their conquest records. Every species they've absorbed was peaceful. Scientists, artists, philosophers. None of them had standing militaries. The Dominion shows up, makes threats, and they surrender." "They've never met humans," Rivera said softly. A junior officer approached with a tablet. Admiral, the Dominion is requesting a face-to-face meeting. They want to discuss the surrender terms in detail. Rivera looked around the table at Earth's military leadership. Slowly, deliberately, she smiled. Accept the meeting. Tell them we have questions about their generous offer. Should we begin moving our assets into position? Park asked. Absolutely, but quietly. Rivera pulled up a classified file marked Project Nightfall. They want to see frightened primitives. Let's give them a show. 70 kilometers above the surface, orbital defense platforms that had been disguised as old satellites began receiving new orders. In shipyards on the dark side of the moon, vessels that didn't appear on any public registry powered up their reactors. Throughout the asteroid belt, mining stations that were anything but civilian-activated weapon systems that had been hidden for decades. On Mars, the colony that the Dominion scans had identified as a small research outpost revealed its true nature. 50,000 personnel manned defense installations built into the planet's crust. Rail guns that could accelerate projectiles to 3% of light speed swiveled toward optimal firing positions. Humanity had learned something important after nearly destroying itself in the Third World War. Peace was maintained by strength, and strength required preparation. For 60 years, Earth had built weapons in secret, preparing for the day when they might encounter hostile aliens. That day had arrived. 72 hours, Rivera said to her council. We'll use every second. I want complete intelligence on their fleet composition, command structure, and tactical doctrine. Find their weaknesses. And if they don't have any, someone asked. Rivera's smile turned cold. Everyone has weaknesses. The Dominion's biggest one is arrogance. They think they're facing another peaceful species ready to roll over. They're about to learn what happens when you threaten a world that's been fighting itself for 10,000 years. Dr. Hassan pulled up Earth's military history on the display. Wars, conflicts, battles stretching back to the dawn of civilization. Millions of different tactics, strategies, and weapons tested against human opponents. We're not like the others they've conquered, he said quietly. We don't have to invent warfare, we've perfected it. The neutral meeting station floated between Earth and the Dominion fleet. Both sides had agreed to the location, a small commercial satellite that had been hastily cleared of civilian personnel. Trellix arrived first, his shuttle docking with practiced precision. 2 ceremonial guards flanked him, their ornate armor polished to a mirror shine. Admiral Rivera's shuttle arrived exactly on time. She stepped through the airlock wearing a simple military uniform, no decorations, no ceremony. Dr. Hassan and Colonel Barnes followed her. The contrast was deliberate. Trellix gestured to the conference room with what he probably thought was a welcoming expression. Admiral Rivera, thank you for accepting our invitation to discuss your surrender. We're here to ask questions, Rivera replied evenly, not to surrender. The ambassador's smile faltered slightly. In 10,000 years of Dominion history, no one had ever corrected him during negotiations. He recovered quickly. Of course, please sit. The conference table was circular, another human touch. No head position, no power dynamics. Trellix seemed momentarily confused by the arrangement before taking a seat. His guards stood behind him, hands on ceremonial weapons that had never seen combat. Your terms mention that 847 species have already joined the Dominion, Rivera began. Can you tell us about them? Trellix brightened, happy to boast. Certainly. The Dominion has brought peace and prosperity to countless worlds. The Kellys were brilliant scientists but had no organization. We provided structure. The Benthari were artists who lacked direction. We gave them purpose. And how did these species respond when you first arrived? Dr. Hassan asked, his pen moving across a physical notepad. They recognized the wisdom of cooperation, Trellix said proudly. Some took a few days to understand the benefits, but all eventually saw reason. Did any of them fight back? Barnes asked bluntly. The ambassador actually laughed. Fight? Why would they fight? Violence is the refuge of primitive minds. Advanced species understand that cooperation serves everyone's interests. Rivera and Barnes exchanged a glance. The colonel made a small note. Tell me about your military structure, Rivera continued. How do you maintain order across such a vast empire? Trellix launched into a detailed explanation. The Dominion fleet operated on a hub system. Each conquered world contributed resources and personnel. The military existed primarily for expansion, not defense. Internal conflicts were almost unknown because all member species understood the benefits of compliance. We haven't fought a real war in 600 years, Trellix said with evident pride. The last species that attempted resistance was the Kryn. They had primitive missile weapons. Our shields absorbed everything they had. After we destroyed their military infrastructure, they surrendered within a week. How many ships did you lose in that conflict? Hassan asked casually. None, Trellix replied. We have never lost a vessel in conquest. Our technology is simply superior. Rivera nodded slowly, processing this information. While they talked, the questions seemed random, jumping from topic to topic, but each one was carefully designed. Barnes asked about troop formations. Hassan inquired about shield technology. Rivera questioned their command protocols. Trellix answered everything freely. Why wouldn't he? These humans were clearly trying to understand the power they faced. It was a natural response before surrender. What the ambassador didn't know was that every word was being analyzed by Earth's most advanced artificial intelligence. Every detail about Dominion tactics, technology, and organization was being fed into military databases. Pattern recognition software was identifying weaknesses in real time. You mentioned your shields, Hassan said, adjusting his glasses. How do they handle multiple simultaneous impacts? Our shields can absorb anything your primitive weapons might produce, Trellix assured him. Nuclear weapons, kinetic projectiles, directed energy, all useless against Dominion defenses. Fascinating, Hassan murmured, making another note. While the meeting continued, Colonel Barnes excused himself to use the restroom. The guards didn't even watch him leave. 3 minutes later, he returned. In that time, microscopic drones smaller than dust particles had infiltrated the Dominion shuttle docked outside. Within the hour, those drones would transmit complete technical specifications of every system on board. I'm curious about something, Rivera said, leaning back in her chair. In 847 conquests, you've never encountered a militarized species. Define militarized, Trellix said with amusement. A civilization that maintains standing armies, that builds weapons as a priority, that studies warfare as a science. The ambassador shook his head. Such species are extremely rare. Evolution favors cooperation, not conflict. By the time a civilization reaches space travel, they've typically abandoned primitive violence. You humans still have weapons because you're young. You'll outgrow it. I see, Rivera said quietly. And your own military forces, how much combat experience do they have? Experience, Trellix seemed confused by the question. Our forces train extensively. They study optimal formation tactics and practice ceremonial procedures. But actual combat, Barnes pressed. There is no actual combat, Trellix explained slowly, as if speaking to a child. That's the point. Our technology is so superior that resistance is impossible. We arrive, we demonstrate our capabilities, and intelligent species accept the inevitable. Rivera stood, extending her hand in the human gesture of farewell. Thank you, Ambassador. You've been very educational. Trellix took her hand, pleased with himself. The meeting had gone exactly as expected. The humans had asked their questions, realized the futility of resistance, and would now return to prepare their surrender. I look forward to welcoming Earth into the Dominion family." As the human delegation returned to their shuttle, Barnes muttered under his breath, "They've never fought a war, not a real one." "Ceremonial formations," Hassan added. "Shields designed for overwhelming power, not tactical adaptation." Rivera said nothing until they were sealed inside the shuttle and headed back to Earth. Then she allowed herself a small, cold smile. "They've been conquering pacifists for 10,000 years. They have no idea what warriors look like." On the flagship, Trellix reported to Commander Rathner. "The humans are processing their defeat. They asked numerous questions about our capabilities, clearly trying to understand what they face. I estimate they'll surrender within 48 hours." "Excellent," Rathner replied. "Prepare the integration protocols." The broadcast began at exactly the 72-hour mark. Every Dominion ship received it simultaneously on all frequencies. Trellix settled into his command chair, expecting to see Admiral Rivera announcing Earth's surrender. Instead, a different human appeared on screen. Secretary General Collins sat behind a simple desk, her gray hair pulled back, her expression neutral. No flags, no ceremony, no indication of stress. She could have been discussing trade agreements instead of addressing an invasion fleet. "Ambassador Trellix, Commander Rathner, members of the Dominion fleet," she began. "We have carefully considered your offer. Here is our response." Trellix leaned forward. This was the moment of capitulation. He'd seen it 847 times before. "The Dominion fleet will leave the Sol system immediately," Collins continued in the same calm tone. "You will purge all records of Earth's location from your databases. You will never return to human space. In exchange, we will not demonstrate why this is necessary." Silence filled the Dominion flagship. Trellix blinked, certain he'd misheard. Around him, the bridge crew stared at their screens in confusion. On the tactical display, Commander Rathner actually laughed. "Did she just give us an ultimatum?" the commander asked incredulously. "There must be a translation error," Trellix said, but his hand was already moving to request clarification. Secretary General Collins continued as if she'd heard the unspoken question. "There is no translation error. These are our terms. You have invaded our home. You have threatened our people. We are giving you one chance to leave peacefully." "Impossible," Rathner muttered. "Their entire fleet couldn't damage one of our shields." "We have reviewed your conquest history," Collins said, pulling up data on her own screen. 847 species. Impressive. But we noticed something interesting. Not one of them had a military before you arrived. The Kellys were scientists. The Benthari were artists. The Kryn had basic missiles and nothing else. On the Dominion flagship, several officers exchanged uncomfortable glances. It was true, but why did it matter? "Humanity is different," Collins explained. "We have been at war with ourselves for 10,000 years. We know 10,000 ways to kill. You know one: overwhelming technological force. It has worked for you because you've only fought peaceful civilians." Trellix finally found his voice. "You cannot possibly believe you can defeat us. We outnumber you 50-1. Our technology is centuries beyond yours." "We have studied you carefully during these 72 hours, Collins replied. "Your shields pulse on a 47-second cycle with a 0.03-second gap. Your weapons operate on a centralized targeting network vulnerable to electromagnetic disruption. Your formations are ceremonial, designed for intimidation rather than tactical flexibility. Your command structure has never adapted to actual combat because you've never experienced any." The bridge of the Dominion flagship went very quiet. How did they know those details? Those were classified specifications. "You have 1 minute to begin your withdrawal," Collins said, glancing at something off-screen. "After that, we will demonstrate our capabilities." Rathner slammed his hand on the console. "This is absurd. Trellix, are these primitives actually threatening us?" "It appears so, Commander." Then let's show them the price of arrogance. All ships target the human homeworld. Prepare to fire. On Earth, in the bunker beneath Geneva, Admiral Rivera watched the Dominion fleet maneuver into firing position. She counted down quietly. 45 seconds, 40, 35. They're not withdrawing, General Park observed. I didn't think they would, Rivera replied. 30 seconds, 25. Weapons charging, a technician reported from the Dominion flagship. Firing solution locked. 20 seconds, Rivera said calmly. 15. Commander Rathner pointed at the viewscreen showing Earth, small and blue and helpless. Fire. Nothing happened. I said fire. Rathner repeated. The weapons officer's hands flew across his controls. Sir, the systems aren't responding. I'm locked out. 10 seconds, Rivera counted. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 3 Dominion ships on the fleet's perimeter suddenly vanished from all sensors. No explosion, no debris, just gone. 10 seconds later, they reappeared as expanding clouds of metal fragments. 300 highly trained crew members died before they even knew they were under attack. Chaos erupted across the Dominion fleet. Alarms blared. Crews scrambled to battle stations they'd never actually used in combat. Shields powered to maximum, searching for threats that sensors couldn't detect. Secretary General Collins reappeared on every screen. That was a demonstration. The mines that destroyed those ships are currently positioned throughout your fleet. You never detected them because you've never had to look for stealth technology. Why would you? No one you've conquered had any. Trellix felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: fear. Your weapons are offline because we infiltrated your systems during our diplomatic meeting, Collins continued. The microscopic drones we introduced have given us complete control of your fleet's offensive capabilities. We can fire your weapons, or ensure you cannot. We chose the latter. Impossible, Rathner whispered, but his crew was already confirming the nightmare. Every weapons system on every ship was locked. Your shields are functional, Collins noted. We're allowing that because we want you to understand something. Your defenses don't matter when we control your offense. You cannot fight what you cannot hit. On the tactical display, hundreds of new contacts appeared. Human ships decloaked around the Dominion fleet, their weapons very obviously online and tracking targets. The Dominion armada was surrounded by an enemy they'd never seen coming. You have 28 minutes remaining, Collins said. Use that time to decide. Withdraw peacefully, or we will remove you by force. Your ships are worth more intact, but will settle for debris if necessary. Trellix looked at Commander Rathner. The commander's face had gone pale, his confident arrogance replaced by dawning horror. What do we do? Trellix asked quietly. I don't know, Rathner admitted. For the first time in 600 years, the Dominion military didn't have an answer. They'd finally met a species that wasn't afraid of them. Worse, they'd met a species that had been preparing for exactly this kind of fight since before the Dominion Empire even existed. Humanity had been forged in war. The Dominion had merely practiced it as theater. Commander Rathner stared at his tactical display with the expression of someone watching their entire worldview collapse. Red icons surrounded his fleet. Human ships, dozens of them, all weapon-hot and tracking Dominion vessels. His own weapons remained stubbornly offline. Someone explained to me how primitives infiltrated our entire fleet, he said, voice dangerously quiet. The chief technical officer looked up from her console, face ashen. Sir, I'm finding backdoors in systems we didn't even know could be hacked. They're in our life support, navigation, even the food dispensers. They've had access to everything for weeks. Weeks, Trellix stood abruptly. We only arrived 3 days ago. The infiltration started before we left Dominion space, the officer replied, bringing up logs. They knew we were coming before we did. A junior communications officer raised his hand hesitantly. Sir, I'm receiving personal messages on my station. From the humans. What kind of messages? Rathner demanded. The officer's voice shook as he read. It says, we can vent your atmosphere from this console. We can disable your gravity. We can shut down your medical bay. We choose not to. Please choose wisely. Around the bridge, other crew members checked their stations. Every single one had a similar message, personalized to their specific systems. The humans weren't just in the Dominion network. They were demonstrating complete control over individual ship functions. How is this possible? Trellix whispered. On Earth, Dr. Hassan smiled as he watched the Dominion fleet's frantic communications. They're starting to understand. Send the next phase, Admiral Rivera ordered. Across the Dominion fleet, every screen switched to a new broadcast. This time it wasn't Secretary General Collins. It was surveillance footage from inside Dominion space. Their throne world, the Imperial Palace, Empress Talara's private chambers. The footage was crystal clear, obviously taken within the last few hours. It showed the Empress in a strategy meeting, discussing the Earth situation with her advisors. The audio was perfect. Trellix felt his blood turn to ice. If humans had access to the Imperial Palace itself, then nowhere in Dominion space was secure. We've been watching you for a long time, a human voice narrated over the footage. We've mapped every major installation. We know your trade routes, your military deployments, your resource stockpiles. We could cripple your empire's infrastructure without firing a shot. The footage switched to other locations: shipyards, military academies, resource processing facilities, all filmed from angles that should have been impossible, all timestamped within the last 72 hours. 16 minutes, the voice reminded them. Rathner made a decision he'd never thought he'd face. Open a channel to Imperial Command, priority override. While he waited for the connection, another disaster unfolded. 3 ship captains on different vessels sent private messages requesting permission to surrender to Earth. They weren't being cowardly. They were being practical. Their ships were completely compromised, their crews were terrified, and their commander had no answers. Negative, Rathner replied, but his voice lacked conviction. What could he even threaten them with? Court-martial? Disgrace? Those concepts meant nothing to dead crew members. Empress Talara appeared on the viewscreen. She sat in the same room the humans had just shown footage of, which made the violation even more stark. Commander Rathner, report. Your Majesty, we have a significant situation. He outlined the crisis as quickly as possible. The human ultimatum, the destroyed ships, the system's infiltration, the surveillance footage. Talara listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. You're telling me that a species we classified as barely spacefaring has complete control of our invasion fleet and surveillance access to our core worlds? Yes, Your Majesty. And they gave you an ultimatum, instead of simply destroying you. Yes, Your Majesty. Talara stood, packing in her chambers. Her advisors watched nervously. How many ships have we lost in the last 600 years of conquest? None, Your Majesty, Trellix answered, until today. And now we've lost 3 in the first hour of actual resistance. She turned to face the screen directly. What are they demanding? Complete withdrawal from their space, a 100 light-year buffer zone, mutual non-aggression protocols. Rathner paused. They're offering to negotiate instead of destroy us, but the offer expires in 14 minutes. One of Talara's advisors spoke up. Your Majesty, we could send the subjugation fleet, overwhelming numbers. Send them where? Talara asked sharply. Against an enemy that has already infiltrated our systems. How do you know the subjugation fleet isn't compromised too? The advisor went pale. No one had considered that possibility. Secretary General Collins appeared on the Dominion Communications channel. Empress Talara, I'm glad you're consulting with Commander Rathner. To answer your advisor's question, The subjugation fleet has been compromised. We've had access since they began mobilizing. We can provide you with their current orders if you'd like verification." The bridge went silent. The humans were listening to everything. The encrypted Imperial channel wasn't secure at all. "We're not your enemy," Collins continued. "We wanted to be left alone. You chose to threaten us. We're giving you a chance to make a different choice." "Why?" Talara asked directly. "If you have this much capability, why negotiate at all?" "Because we learned something you apparently haven't," Collins replied. "Winning a war and winning a peace are different things. We could destroy your fleet. We could probably damage your empire severely. But what then? You have 847 member species. You have infrastructure spanning hundreds of systems, destabilizing all that would create chaos across the galaxy. So you're showing mercy." Talara's tone was skeptical. "We're showing strategic thinking," Collins corrected. "We don't want to rule the galaxy. We want to be left alone, but we also won't abandon the defensive capabilities that kept us alive. So we're offering a different relationship than you're used to." "Which is?" "Mutual respect between equals," Collins said simply. "You stop treating Earth as a target. We stop treating the Dominion as a threat. We establish proper diplomatic channels and communication protocols. We share some defensive technologies that might help you against actual threats, and everyone benefits." Rathner checked his countdown. 9 minutes, Your Majesty." Talara looked at her advisors. They had no solutions. She looked at the surveillance footage still playing on her screens. The humans could strike anywhere. She looked at her military reports. 600 years without a real fight had left them unprepared for opponents who actually knew warfare. "Commander Rathner," she said finally, "begin withdrawal procedures. Pull back beyond their specified buffer zone." "Your Majesty," Rathner couldn't hide his shock. "We've been conquering pacifists," Talara said quietly. "These humans are something different, something we're not prepared to fight." The Dominion fleet withdrew beyond Pluto's orbit in complete silence. No proud formations this time, just efficient retreat. Every crew member knew they'd been defeated without firing a single shot. In the flagship's conference room, Commander Rathner and Ambassador Trellix waited for the next communication with equal parts dread and curiosity. Empress Talara initiated the quantum link from her throne world. Secretary General Collins appeared on screen, flanked by Admiral Rivera and Dr. Hassan. The Empress noted that all 3 humans looked calm, almost relaxed. No triumphant gloating, no aggressive posturing, just professional attention. "Thank you for withdrawing your fleet," Collins began. "That was a wise decision." "Let's be clear," Talara replied. "This was strategic retreat, not surrender. I want to understand what we're dealing with. You've demonstrated capabilities that shouldn't exist for a species at your developmental stage." "Developmental stage," Collins repeated thoughtfully. "That's part of your problem, Empress. You've been categorizing species based on their technology level. You missed something more important." Dr. Hassan pulled up a holographic display. "Humanity invented the first projectile weapon approximately 50,000 years ago. The Atlatl, a spear-throwing device. Since then, we've created hundreds of thousands of different weapons. Swords, arrows, guns, bombs, missiles, drones, cyber weapons, biological agents, nuclear devices. We've weaponized everything from pointed sticks to quantum mechanics." "We know you have weapons," Talara said impatiently. "All species do in their primitive phases." "You're missing the point," Collins interjected. "We didn't stop. Most species apparently reach space travel and abandon warfare. They have no need for it anymore. Humanity reached space and brought warfare with us, not because we wanted to, but because we had to." Admiral Rivera activated another display. "Human history is cycles of conflict and peace. We've fought over resources, territory, ideology, religion, pride, and sometimes for no good reason at all. We've nearly destroyed ourselves at least 3 times. Each time we survived by becoming better at war. That sounds like a weakness, Talara observed. A species that can't outgrow violence. It's both weakness and strength, Collins acknowledged. Yes, we've done terrible things to each other, but we've also learned lessons you've apparently never needed. We know how asymmetric warfare works. We understand intelligence gathering. We've studied psychological operations, guerrilla tactics, cyber warfare, and every other form of combat that doesn't rely on technological superiority. Hassan brought up comparative analyses. Your fleet uses formation tactics designed to intimidate, very effective against opponents who have never seen military formations before. But any human military academy graduate could identify 17 critical vulnerabilities in your approach. We noticed you've never fought a peer competitor, Rivera added. Every species you've conquered was technologically inferior and culturally peaceful. You developed a doctrine that works perfectly for that situation, but it's useless against opponents who actually know warfare. Talara leaned forward. You're saying we're not prepared for real war. You're not, Collins confirmed bluntly. Your shields are strong but predictable. Your weapons are powerful but inflexible. Your tactics assume compliance. Your entire military structure is built for occupation, not combat. Show me, Talara demanded. Rivera pulled up tactical simulations. Scenario 1, traditional fleet engagement. Your ships against ours in open space, equal numbers. You'd win easily. Your energy weapons outrange our railguns. Your shields can absorb our missiles. We know that. So we are superior, Talara said. In that specific scenario, yes, Rivera agreed. Now scenario 2, asymmetric engagement. You're in our territory. We use stealth mines, cyber warfare, false sensor readings, and targeted strikes on command vessels. You have superior firepower but no idea where we are or when we'll hit. Your casualties in that scenario exceed 90%. Hassan added more data. Your centralized command structure is efficient but fragile. Removing 3 key ships paralyzes your entire fleet. Your communication protocols are unencrypted and easily intercepted. Your ships are designed to project power, not defend against unconventional attacks. We could adapt, Talara argued. Could you? Collins asked. Adaptation requires experience. You'd need to lose a few dozen engagements to learn what we already know. How many ships can you afford to lose while learning lessons humanity paid for in blood over 10,000 years? The Empress was quiet. Around her, advisors reviewed the human tactical assessments with growing concern. Everything they were seeing confirmed what Collins was saying. The Dominion military was built for a specific type of conquest. Faced with actual resistance, it was nearly useless. There's something else you need to understand, Collins continued. We've accessed your historical databases. We know about the 847 species you've absorbed. Scientists, artists, philosophers, beautiful cultures with incredible achievements, and you've enslaved them all. We integrated them, Talara corrected. They contribute to the greater good of the empire. Without choice, Rivera said flatly. You showed up and gave them 2 options, join or die. The fact that most chose to join doesn't make it consensual. Collins pulled up data from Dominion worlds. We've been monitoring communications across your empire. Many of your subject species aren't happy. They comply because they have no choice. The Kellys scientists work in your laboratories because refusing means death. The Benthari artists create for your empire because their families are hostages. You're painting us as monsters, Talara said, but her voice lacked conviction. You're not monsters, Collins replied. You're an empire built on a flawed assumption. You believe that technological superiority gives you the right to rule others. It doesn't. It just gives you power. And power without wisdom creates tyranny. Hassan displayed more information. Here's what we're proposing: a complete restructuring of Dominion governance. Your subject species get representation and autonomy. They contribute because they choose to, not because they're forced. You transition from empire to federation. That would take decades, Talara protested. It would destabilize everything. Probably, Collins agreed. The alternative is that humanity begins liberating your worlds one by one. We've already made contact with several species who have expressed interest in independence. We're offering you a chance to make the transition voluntarily before it happens involuntarily. You go to war to free species you've never met? Talara asked incredulously. Rivera smiled grimly. We told you, we've been fighting for 10,000 years. At least this time it would be for something worth fighting for. 12 months after the confrontation at Earth, Empress Talara stood before the Galactic Assembly. The chamber was filled with representatives from species that had never spoken freely before. Kelly's scientists sat beside Benthari artists. Former slaves now held positions of authority. The transformation had been painful but necessary. 1 year ago, humanity taught the Dominion a lesson we desperately needed, Talara began. We had confused power with right, conquest with progress. Today, I formally dissolve the Dominion Empire. In its place, we establish the Galactic Federation, where every species has voice and vote. The assembly erupted in cautious applause. Secretary General Collins watched from the human delegation section. Admiral Rivera sat beside her, along with Dr. Hassan and representatives from every Earth nation. They'd been invited as honored guests, but also as guarantors. The Federation existed because humanity had proven willing to enforce it. After the ceremony, Talara approached the human delegation privately. I wanted to thank you personally and apologize. We could have destroyed so much in our arrogance. You were locked into a system that worked for 10,000 years, Collins replied. Change is hard, especially when you're successful. The key is recognizing when success is hiding deeper problems. Still, your methods were harsh, Talara said. Humiliating my fleet, infiltrating our most secure systems, threatening our empire. Was that necessary? Rivera answered. Would gentle persuasion have worked? We calculated the probability. Without dramatic demonstration, you would have assumed we were bluffing. More ships would have died. The war would have escalated. You're probably right, Talara admitted. I've been reading human military history. The concept of overwhelming psychological impact to avoid actual bloodshed. We knew nothing of such tactics. Hassan smiled. That's because you never needed to. Your empire expanded by showing up with superior firepower. Subtle strategy wasn't necessary when brute force always worked. A Kelly's scientist approached, her 6 legs clicking on the floor. Ambassador Collins, my people wanted me to express gratitude. For 600 years, we've worked in Dominion laboratories with no choice in our research. Now we're free to pursue our own interests again. You earned that freedom yourselves, Collins replied. We just helped create the opportunity. Across the galaxy, the changes continued. Former Dominion military bases became educational centers. Tribute systems transformed into fair trade agreements. Species that had been forbidden weapons developed their own defense forces, with human advisors helping them understand deterrence versus aggression. Not everyone was happy with the new order. A faction of Dominion loyalists called the Restoration Front had formed, believing the Empire should return to its old ways. They operated in secret, planning to overthrow the Federation and reinstall traditional rule. Admiral Rivera received intelligence about their activities during a routine briefing. They're stockpiling weapons on the outer colonies, the analyst reported. Building ships in hidden shipyards. They think they can spark a counter-revolution. Let me guess, Rivera said. They haven't noticed we've had surveillance on them since day one. Correct, Admiral. We've been monitoring their communications, tracking their resources, and mapping their entire network. They're using old Dominion encryption, which we cracked months ago. Rivera considered the situation. We could shut them down immediately, but that would just create martyrs, Let's try something different. 3 days later, the Restoration Front received an unexpected communication. It was from their secure base, except the message wasn't from their commanders. It was from a human intelligence officer. "Hello, Restoration Front," the message began, showing detailed schematics of their hidden facilities. "We've been watching your operation with interest. You're planning to overthrow the Federation and restore the Dominion Empire. We thought you should know a few things before you proceed." The broadcast showed surveillance footage from inside their own bases. Every meeting, every weapons cache, every ship under construction. The humans knew everything. "We could destroy your organization right now," the officer continued. "But Secretary General Collins believes in giving people choices. So here's yours. You can continue planning your revolution. We'll wait until you launch it, then systematically dismantle your forces. Many of you will die, or you can redirect your resources toward something constructive." The message paused, letting that sink in. The old empire conquered through force. The Federation thrives through cooperation. You have skills, resources, and passion. The galaxy needs defenders against actual threats, not internal rebellion. We're offering you a choice: be enemies of the Federation or become its shield against external dangers. 3 weeks later, most of the Restoration Front accepted the offer. Their hidden shipyards began producing defense vessels for frontier colonies. Their military expertise went into training programs for species learning self-defense. A few hardliners refused and disappeared quietly, their operations dismantled by coordinated Federation security forces. 5 years after first contact, Earth had become the acknowledged military expert of the galactic community, not through conquest, but through demonstrated capability and strategic wisdom. Human advisors helped design defensive networks. Human intelligence services trained other species in counterespionage. Human diplomatic protocols became the standard for conflict resolution. Secretary General Collins retired after her second term, satisfied with Earth's position in the galaxy. Admiral Rivera took over as the first human ambassador to the Galactic Federation Council. Dr. Hassan continued developing defensive technologies that protected worlds from actual threats while preventing arms races. The Dominion Throne world had transformed into Federation Central, a hub of galactic governance where every species had representation. Empress Talera, now President Talera, often reflected on how close they'd come to disaster. "We thought we were unbeatable," she told Rivera during a private dinner. 10,000 years of success had made us blind." "Success is dangerous that way," Rivera agreed. "It convinces you that what worked before will always work. Humanity learned that lesson the hard way, multiple times. We nearly destroyed ourselves because we couldn't adapt to new realities. And now you help others avoid the same mistakes." "That's the idea. Though we're still learning too. Turns out governing a peaceful galactic federation is harder than fighting wars. Give us a few thousand more years and we might figure it out." Talara laughed. "You humans are strange, admitting uncertainty while demonstrating absolute confidence." "It's called perspective," Rivera said. "We know we're good at warfare because we've had 10,000 years of practice. We know we're terrible at peace because we've barely managed it. So we work with partners who have different strengths." In orbit above Federation Central, human defense platforms maintained quiet vigil. Silent, nearly invisible but always watching. Earth had promised to protect the Federation, and humanity kept its promises. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Technology determined capability, but wisdom determined how that capability was used. And sometimes, the species that had suffered most from their own mistakes were the ones best equipped to help others avoid them. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as warriors who chose when to fight and when to protect. The harsh lessons of Earth's violent past had become the foundation for a more peaceful galactic future.